What's up, runners? The emergency guide to pain relief for runners preparing for the marathon. Maybe it's just a few weeks out. You got Boston Marathon right around the corner. Maybe you got London. Depending on the time of year you watch this, you may be preparing for a major marathon. You're like, oh, freaking out. You got this injury. You're like, oh, you don't know if you can continue, if you should stop altogether. Should you give up your marathon major dream that you had? Well, let's talk about it. I know that excitement of race day feels overshadowed by worry, but will you even make it to the starting line? First off, take a deep breath and then let it go. Every year, nearly 80% of runners experience some kind of injury. You're not alone. And all hope is not lost. While injuries can feel devastating because you've been told by your doctors, if it hurts, just stop. If you feel any pain whatsoever, just stop completely. That's not always true. Some pain you could work through. Some pain, yes, you should respect some types of pain and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But you don't always, if it hurts, doesn't mean you have to stop altogether. Okay. And many of them are manageable and tackled with the right mindset and pain. They're not all catastrophic. They're not all fractures that you need to, stop altogether. The guide here is to help you understand your pain, address it, and keep your marathon goals alive. It's not all doom and gloom, trust me. And with care, patience, and a few smart adjustments, you'll be back on the course in no time. So, understanding common running injuries. Before we jump into solutions, it's worth recognizing what you might be against. The most common running injuries most runners commonly experience, you got runner's knee, pain around the kneecap. And now the thing is, you can't also self-diagnose these things. If these are like serious injuries and pains, definitely go to a doctor. I know it's tempting to go on Google and put like, oh, my pain's around the kneecap. It must be runner's knee. It could be runner's knee, or it could be something else. There's something called differential diagnosis where like physical therapists and doctors try to break down what the actual cause is. They do different tests, different measures. It's really hard for the layperson just to use Google like, oh, I'm just going to diagnose my problem. But nonetheless, I know a lot of you guys on the internet like to do this kind of thing, try to like self-diagnose your problem. Now, if it's a minor injury, chances are it could just get better with some short rest and some exercise. But we're going to talk about what are the common running injuries. But this is not, again, this is not a green light to try to diagnose yourself. But anyhow, we got runner's knee, again, pain around the kneecap. Achilles tendinopathy, which is typically pain in the back of your heel, your Achilles tendon, and going into your heel. You got plantar fasciitis, which is stabbing pain in the bottom of your foot, the arch of the foot, and sometimes in the heel. And there we go with differential diagnosis. You got two things that could cause heel pain here, plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendinopathy, and it could be both felt in the heel, but different parts of the heel. Anyhow, we got shin splints, pain along the inner edge of your shin bone, your lower leg. And IT band syndrome, pain on the outside of your knee or thigh. So these conditions range from minor nuances to complete showstoppers, but they really rarely appear out of the blue. Often small nagging pains are ignored only to flare up weeks or days before race day. But here's the good news. Many of these injuries can be relieved and managed with simple, effective strategies. So when to keep running and when to stop. Not every ache requires an immediate halt to your marathon training, but distinguishing between mild discomfort and a serious problem is key. So when you know you have the green light to keep running, your pain is very mild. Let's say that 0 to 10 scale, it's about anywhere from like 0, ideally no pain, but maybe it's just like a 3 out of 10, so mild pain. So anywhere from like 1 to 3 or 0 to 3 on the pain scale, that's considered, hey, mild to no pain, great. You got the green light, thumbs up, keep running. The pain doesn't worsen as you run. So let's say you're going on a long run, you're doing your marathon long run prep. It doesn't worsen as you run. It kind of stays around a 3, 2 or 3, or maybe even gets better as you warm up. Right. And then afterwards, you're fine. It stays, maybe goes away when you're walking. So it only happens when you run. It's just a 2 or 3 and then it goes away. You're probably fine. You don't need to go rush to a doctor and think, oh my God, I'm on fire. Right. You're not compensating. You're not limping. You're not altering your natural stride when you run. And it's not carrying over to your walking. You're not limping when you walk. Again, you probably have the green light to continue. And in many cases, if you want to be conservative, you could do a run-walk program, which I do recommend a lot of runners do, especially doing a marathon. And, especially as we get older, sometimes the body just needs those more frequent rest run walks. And it's good for all ages, actually. Beginners, even experienced runners should do a run. I think a run walk is great. It'll help reduce impact while keeping you moving. And unless you're like the elite of the elite, like you're trying to win the race, which highly unlikely if you're watching this. And if you are, great. I love that elite runners are watching this. But if you're not like the champion crossing the finish line, chances are the run walk is not really going to slow you down. If you're like a 3-hour marathoner, you can still run a 3 hour marathon with run walk. Don't think that run walk's only for beginners or runners who are running like the 4 or 5 hour marathons. You can do a run walk for a 3:30, a 3 hour marathon. So a sample run walk, if you're dealing with an injury, would be like run 10 seconds, walk 50 seconds, and repeat the intervals for the length of your long run, for example. And that's just one example. If you don't like 10-second run, walk 50 seconds. There's other variations. There's like run 30 seconds, walk 30 seconds. You can look this up, run walk program. There's lots of variations out there. Further, just add rest days. So many runners, especially marathoners, they have to run 7 days a week, right? You don't have to run every single day of the week. You could actually train with a marathon doing 3 or 4 days a week and just have 2 or 3 rest days in between. Oftentimes, just having rest days in between your long run, tempo runs, different types of run workouts just does wonders, just letting your body recover between workouts. Who would have thought? What an amazing idea. And I'm sure, if you're a complete beginner, this might be confusing. And I totally understand if you're a complete beginner, you don't know, hey, I heard you have to run 6 days or 7 days. No, it's okay. You could actually train for a marathon on 3 or 4 days a week of running. And then red light, when can you stop running? When pain increases as you run, you're compensating. Maybe you're limping or shifting your weight unnaturally, like you're noticing a noticeable limp. Stop running. If you're using that pain scale, the pains are now climbing to like a 5, 6, if it's a 7 to 10, like severe pain, you're like 7, 8, 9, 10 pain. That's that red light. Hey, stop. That pain's just worsening. It's getting worse after you run. So you finish your run workout and then the pain's worse after. And it causes you to change the way you walk or move around. You experience numbness, muscle weakness, maybe even discoloration. Like it's like bruising along the leg, or it's like pale or lack of circulation. The pain wakes you up at night or even prevents you from walking comfortably. These are signs you need immediate rest, medical attention. Go see a doctor, go to urgent care, listen to your body. In this case, hey, this is like a red light. You should definitely stop running and seek urgent care instead of trying to push through it, especially if it's something like a potential what you think is a shin splint, but it might actually be a stress fracture if it's like getting worse and worse, like sharp pain. And it's also affecting just your ability to walk, your day-to-day walking. So the role of rest and why it's not always enough. So rest is crucial, especially when pain flares up. And, for acute injuries like a mild muscle strain or a sprained ligament, like a sprained ankle, you could usually rest a few days up to a week. And those mild, minor injuries do just subside with rest. However, rest alone isn't always a solution for a long-term recovery for recurring issues like runner's knee or tendon injuries. Tissues need movement to promote blood flow, strengthen the affected area, and encourage healing. That said, severe pain warrants time off, whether that's a few days of rest for a muscle strain or more extended for major injuries. Cool. So here are some tips for acute injuries. You probably heard of rest, ice compression elevation, but many experts now recommend the updated peace and love method for healing. Here's the breakdown. Peace, P, protection, avoid painful activities, and use aids like crutches if needed. Like if you need a rapid with a compression wrap for your knee, for example, or if you need a walk with a crutch or a cane, you could do that temporarily depending on the extent of the injury. I don't want you to just run out to get crutches if you just had a very mild muscle sprain. There's a balance here. And if you're not sure, just work with a medical professional, go to a doctor or physical therapist. Elevation, raise the injured area above your heart level to reduce swelling. Avoid anti-inflammatories. Just allow your body's natural healing process to work without interference. Now, if the pain is like severe and you must take like a Advil or ibuprofen, if you feel like it's needed for sure, but don't rush to take these medications on a long-term basis. Compression, wrap the area with elastic bandage for support. So if you need be, again, you could use bandage to wrap the injured area, whether it's your ankle, your knee, even muscle tissue. You could wrap a hamstring, your thigh. Education. So just learn about your injury so you can make informed recovery choices. And if you're not sure what your injury is, again, go to a doctor. Don't try to self-diagnose. Okay, load. So now we go into the love portion, load. Reintroduce light weight bearing activities title. So this is just reintroducing exercise. Let's say you injured your knee. You'll be doing for example, leg extension exercises, slowly build up your leg's ability to exercise. Or maybe you do squats, you do partial reps. Then you start going to parallels. You start slowly increasing the load. Then you maybe start adding some weight. Also, stay optimistic. Maintain a positive mindset. Mental resilience aids in physical recovery. So many times runners get injured and they start getting this negative mindset like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to run the race. I can't do the marathon. My marathon running season is over. It's ruined. Oh my God, I spent money on this trip and everything. Just stay optimistic. There's always workarounds. And again, like I mentioned earlier, oftentimes, if the pain is mild, like minor pain, like 0 to 3 pain, you could often complete the marathon with just a run walk program, like You'll Live. And if you need to defer the race because it's a more severe pain, like, hey, maybe you did have a red light severe pain, you can also defer the race. And again, You'll Live. All right. So just maintain an optimistic mindset, positive mindset that you'll just learn from your injury, you rebuild, you recover, you get back to it later, stronger and resilient. So now we go into V, vascularization. So engage in gentle exercise that promotes blood flow, like swimming or cycling. So this is where you could do cross training, just get aerobic exercise to oxygenate the tissues, or walking, right? So if you can't run continuously, just had long breaks of walking. There's, again, that run walk thing, and we keep going back to that. You see this recurrent theme. But even if you can't run, because like say it hurts too much to run, you could just do low impact walking. Anytime most people could tolerate walking, but if it hurts to walk, swimming and biking is there too. And then with the exercise, so we add the E again here for some exercise. We give in slow, focused exercise to regain strength and flexibility in the affected areas. So again, whether it's your knee, your ankle, your hip, you're introducing specific exercises to kind of rehab and build it up again. So then let's talk about strength training for recurring injuries. So, and it might be counterintuitive. Why do you want to strengthen an area that hurts? Why would you do that? Well, if injuries keep cropping up, targeted strength training could be the missing piece in your recovery and prevention plan. Here's how specific exercises can help common problems. For example, tendinopathies. Most tendon injuries need strength training. For example, if you have a hamstring tendinopathy, whether it's proximal, that's by your glute, by your butt, like say you have a hamstring pain by your butt, proximal hamstring tendinopathy, you could do like Nordic curls or bridges, or it's lower down by your knee. You could do just resisted hamstring curls, or that leg curl machine where you just sit on it or lay down to curl and train your hamstring. If it's Achilles tendinopathy, exercise like calf raises, you do single or double leg and single and off a step, and you get out of weight, of course. If it's quadriceps tendinopathy, there's a tendon problem in front of the knee. That may look like runner's knee, but it's actually a quad tendon problem. Then you could do actually like step down and then step downs with weight to gradually strengthen the quad tendon. So consistency is a secret weapon here. You just can't just do strength training, once or twice and then forget about it. You have to like keep it ongoing, especially if you're doing like a rehab for a tendon. It's often like 2 to 3 months of a tendon remodeling program where you're trying to re-strengthen the tendons, help you get out of pain. And if you stay consistent with this type of you'll find that that reoccurring injury goes away altogether. But then afterwards, you still want to go on a maintenance strength program. You just don't want to stop strength training now because the pain's gone. You just want to maintain your strength. And yes, you could taper when it's close. Let's say it's tapering week for your marathon. Yes, you could taper off strength training while you're tapering for the marathon, for sure. But while you're building up, you're prepping for the marathon, you're on your build phase, base building, etc. Add the strength training. Further, another thing that a lot of runners just overlook is just plain old foam rolling, lacrosse ball, something called trigger point release. You're just going to find tight areas, and oftentimes it's a very simple, effective fix for tightness or mild pain is the foam roller or the lacrosse ball. Tight muscles often masquerade as more serious injuries where you think like, oh no, I have a meniscus injury. And oftentimes it's just like a tightness along your TFL muscle, along your hip muscle, and goes into your like outer quad, maybe into the IT band, and you're thinking, oh no, it's a serious meniscus injury, and it's just like really tight muscle, like your outer quad or inner quad, the vastus medialis oblique, and you just do the lacrosse ball or foam roller, you're like, whoa, do that 5 or 10 minutes, you release the tension, and that now your knee pain is like magically gone, and it was just because of muscular tension. So you target these common tight spots, calves, quads, and feet, and oftentimes you'll find like, you didn't even have to go to a doctor. You just had a foam roll and a cross ball, and boom, you can continue running. But the key is you still want to be consistent because oftentimes these tight or hot spots will come back again. So you want to stay consistent on a daily basis. You'll foam roll or lacrosse ball those tight hot spots. Next, you want to avoid the most common training errors. Pain is often the result of training mistakes. Remember these golden rules to stay injury-free. Avoid increasing your mileage by more than 30% over 2 weeks. Right? You might have heard of the 10% rule. Now, the research has shown that 10% is not exactly accurate because beginners and a more experienced runner, their 10% might look different, but the research is more conclusive for 30%. You don't want to make a 30% more increase over 2 weeks. Right, so your mileage. So let's say, you ran 30 miles this week. You're not going to just start going up to like 45 miles the second week, right? You're going to make slow increases in mileage, your total volume of running. Next, what you're running also makes run-walk intervals. Again, don't think that run-walk, you're too good to walk doing run. No, add run-walk intervals, especially if you're dealing with injuries. Run-walk is a great way to reduce impact because you're getting walking, which is low-impact activity. 2 as a rest from running, which is a high impact running activity. So running puts anywhere from 2.5 to 3 times body weight of force through your joints, while walking is only to 1 to 1.5 times body weight. So walking is low impact, running is high impact. You mix the two, you got run walk interval. Prioritize good sleep, right? So 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Sleep works wonders for muscle recovery and overall performance. And lastly, just set your ego aside. Even elite runners use run walk programs to manage train. And again, like I said, there's marathon runners who run 3 hour marathons who also run walk. They'll walk through, maybe walk at the aid stations. And there's different variations. Some people choose to do a walk segment every mile. Whatever works for you, you can experiment with different run walk intervals, as long as, again, your pain's like 3 out of 10 or less or below. And once to see a professional. If pain lingers or worsens despite your best efforts, or if you notice red flags like severe weakness and numbness, burning, numbness, tingling, and it's like you can't move your leg, your knee, your foot, or your hip, consult with a medical professional like a doctor or physical therapist who understands runners. Don't wait until it's too late. Like, don't wait till it's last minute. Like, oh no, your race is 2 weeks away and now you're freaking out. Try to nip this in the bud ahead of time. Don't wait till the last minute. So the road to race day is still ahead, and injury doesn't have to derail your marathon dreams. By taking proactive steps to recover and strengthen your body, you can bounce back stronger and smarter. Running, after all, is much about patience and resilience as it is about speed and endurance. And remember, pain isn't the end of your training. It's just your body's way of keeping you in check. Listen to it, work with it, learn from it. Sometimes you just got to learn from injuries, and trust in your ability to heal and persevere. If you need more guidance, and don't hesitate to reach out to a physical therapist or doctor who understands and specializes with runners. Someone like myself, I'm also a doctor of physical therapy and a run coach, and I work with runners online. If you need help, join my free course for runners, Running Pain Free. I'll drop the link in bio, or if you find me on Instagram, you can also send me a DM on Instagram. So you got this. The finish line is closer than you think.